No more masks for God's sakes. John Caffney. I know I'm getting pretty sick of those, boy. I tell you, it's just I'll be so glad when this whole thing wraps up. Christopher Van Dyke. This COVID-19 sucks. Now I was thinking, and it's usually a dangerous thing when I get to thinking, but I've been thinking about how many different ways this COVID-19 has affected us as truck drivers, the trucking industry as a whole, and it's not over yet. It's not done yet, but there are just 1,000 ramifications that we've seen already. Another 1,000 ramifications that we have yet to see in the next year or so because of it. And I want to know how it's affected you drivers out there. I want to know your individual stories on what has happened to you, how COVID-19 has kept you busier or put you out of work or damaged your carrier somehow, because I know everyone's story is different. And then I've got my long view on what I think is going to happen with COVID-19 here, the long view, like play out by the end of next year or something like that. And it actually may turn out to be a good thing in the end result. Not that COVID was good, but I always try to look at the bright side, and I think I see a silver lining on the horizon for this whole thing. So I'll tell you about that. But I want to hear how you guys are making out through the whole thing. All sorts of weird stuff going on in the trucking industry anymore. Freight's up, freight's down. COVID, it's hard to predict exactly how much COVID is playing on that, but it's definitely triggered an economic slump. And that economic slump has caused manufacturing and factories and everybody to shut down. So already, that's not a good thing. Kelly Patterson says, it's kept me busy. That's good to know, Kelly. I'm glad you're in that kind of shape with this. And why do you think that? Why do you think that is? Just the competition has shut down, and you guys are getting more freight, more loads because some of the competition's closing, or what's brought your carrier to that point? I'd be curious. John Gaffney also says he's been busy. He pulls for Best Buy. Yeah, there's a lot of online shopping through this COVID thing, and I think it has triggered outfits like Best Buy and Amazon to really grow. It's been good for a few businesses. Amazon particularly has profited huge through this deal. Death Proof. I have a secure job, so I can't imagine things getting bad no matter what or how bad they get. That's good. That's good. Some guys really haven't been affected very much. Those guys are few and far between. I know retail and the stores and the restaurants are suffering badly. Kelly Patterson, the type of products that we haul now is what's making the difference. Interesting. That's a big thing now, the distancing, and sometimes that's not always possible. And look at the situation with the truck stops these days. That's got to be awkward. Some of the restaurants are closed or only servicing half the people at every other table and stuff like that. It's hurting them. It's also hard on us. The lack of good truck stops to stop and eat in, a lack of restaurants and washroom facilities, and all sorts of issues with it for the trucking public anyway. Some people now are working only part-time when they'd like to be working full-time, and that always hurts the bottom line. That hurts the paycheck. Everyone has bills they need to pay, and you can't offset them forever. It's not like they go away. It just, you kind of drag them out, but you still owe the money. So how are you guys managing, though? Are you finding the truck stops being half closed? Is that a big pain? You're still able to get fuel, no trouble, I would assume. But other than that, is it affecting you? I guess shipping and receiving could be slower because they're understaffed or something like that. Oh yeah, confined to the cab of the truck for 7 months. Wow, you get a little bit claustrophobic after that. Yeah, there's another good question. How are they handling the shower situation? How are you guys managing with that? Like, they're supposed to clean them after every shower, and I'm sure they do at the truck stops, but are you finding they're going overboard, scrubbing them out before your turn to go in happens? Or Matthew Thomas, I actually stayed busy hauling salt water and oil-based mud for the oil field. That's a good job. Always a demand for that. That's glad to hear they're still pumping in the oil fields and all sorts of guys work in the oil field, so that's a chunk of people. That's good to hear. Yeah. Fred Besmer says, very picky where to shower, but the ones we use are extremely clean. You can smell the bleach. Well, that's good. That's good. The Petros always kept really clean showers. I imagine the Petros are where you stop, and Little America, always spotless showers back then. So, yeah, I'd be concentrating on those if you get into that neck of the woods. Beginning with COVID, all truck stops began staffing at 50% and all at the same time. One person at the register, one invisible person cooking crap food, and cold food was not put in the fridge fast enough. Yeah, a little bit risky. A little bit risky eating in the truck stops. To compensate from that, are you taking more food from home, you guys? And I gather from talking to different guys that truck drivers aren't particularly making any more money through this, which is just kind of typical of our industry. And that's why when things slowed down, something like 50% of the drivers that left to stay home with their families and stuff like that through this pandemic have not returned to the industry. So you thought the driver shortage was bad before. Now the freight has slumped off somewhat, so they haven't really noticed the shortage back yet, but about 50% of the guys did not return. And one of the reasons is because they weren't getting paid extra to risk their necks going to shippers and receivers and, living out of truck stops and stuff. So it should have paid better. It should have paid better. No buffet at the Petro. Yeah, I gather buffets are going to become kind of a thing of the past, which is, just the nature of the beast with this COVID thing. I can see the logic, but I did enjoy the occasional buffet at a quality place. Revenue Canada has increased meal deductions because of COVID. No, Fred, I had not heard that. Well, just in the nick of time, too. When was the last time they increased? That's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that anyway. That's a plus. I was an airline pilot and COVID took my job away. I just got my CDL. Already had a couple of job offers. Cheers from Montreal. I know that the airline industry has taken a real beating, and apparently the cruise line industry even worse. But yeah, flights have been chopped and cut drastically. There's some big industries taking some big hits. Intermodal is staying busy. Interesting. Yeah, and a lot of stuff is still coming in from overseas, and that would keep intermodal busy, and that's a good thing. It's wherever we can stay busy is a blessing through this whole thing. But let me tell you where I think this may play out here, though. This is what I was thinking the other day when I was chewing on this. Is a lot of carriers, just like a lot of other businesses, haven't had the financial resources to survive this. So now the mega carriers have the financial resources, and they've all survived this, but a lot of smaller and medium-sized carriers will not. So with the headlong rush of the mega carriers gobbling up more and more of the long-haul over-the-road freight, because that's what they like to do, I think what you'll see is guys that had been running over the road, professional drivers that don't want to work for a mega carrier just to run long anymore, and they'd rather than work for a mega carrier, they'll fall back and find something close to home that pays by the hour or short or local work. I think you'll see a lot of experienced drivers come off over the road through this and after this, just because they won't work for the mega carriers because they just don't pay enough. So all the long haul stuff will pretty much be grabbed by the mega carriers. Everything else will be the shorter stuff, and it'll pay better anyway. And I think you'll see a trend. Guys that have been over the road have gotten used to being home more often and sleeping in their own beds. And you know what? Once you get used to that again, you like it and you want to be home more. And I think you'll see a real trend of professional drivers away from mega carriers and into the smaller private fleets that run local or pay by the hour, delivery service, anything like that. Just because the mega carriers aren't going to increase their pay worth squat. They give you 2 cents a mile. It adds up to nothing. So no money in that anymore. And I think a lot of guys will now this will be the straw that broke the camel's back, and they'll move to short stuff or, day runs and be home every night, that type of thing. And you know what? For the drivers, in the long run, that's a good thing, because over-the-road trucking, as much as I loved it, it's dead anymore for anybody that wants to make a decent living. You just can't survive on it. I loved it, but the money's gone out of it. So get a short-haul job, stay home every night, and love it, because that's the way the smart money's going to be. That's the way the smart money's going. So I'm going to ask you guys about your pay. If you've slowed down, it's got to have hurt your pay. If you've sped up and you're busy, it's got to help your pay. So hopefully more of you guys have sped up than slowed down. So hopefully more of you guys are making a little more money through this whole deal. And that would help soften this COVID blow. So I'd be curious to know how many of you guys are making better money than you were before out of this COVID situation. Yeah, that's absolutely true. The treatment for over-the-road drivers got a whole lot worse very quickly.
That's subhuman.
Yeah, but it's truck drivers have always been treated poorly in the last 20 years. Never used to be like that before. And this COVID thing has been an excuse for the shippers to deny truck drivers the use of the washrooms and the payphones and all of this stuff. And it's let some of these shippers and receivers play God to the point where they don't even treat truck drivers as people or human beings anymore. And that's been very sad to see. Like how bad could it get where you'd have to treat your drivers like they're subhuman? It should be up to the trucking company to correct it. But trucking companies, they don't want to offend the customers. So, yeah, and of course it depends on who the trucking company is. The good ones will back you. The bad ones will just kind of ignore the problem. But if through this thing, if I encountered a shipper that was treating me like hell, and it was that way before COVID, even when I was out there, when I worked, someone treated me or talked to me that way, I just stayed pinned to the trailer, kept my door closed, and swung around and left. Nobody needs to be treated like that. No one deserves to be treated like that. And then now with this COVID thing being treated even worse, some of those places, pull away, don't go back. If your dispatcher has a problem, you tell him to deliver the load, because you don't deserve to be treated poorly. Nobody does. Don't put up with it. Just take the load back to the yard and go, well, here you go. Find someone that's willing to put up with that crap, because I'm not. No, I never ever stood for anything like that. People can't be civil to one another. Something's wrong, but they're not making me part of it. Yeah, and yeah, getting screwed by the truck stops as well as the brokers. Wayne Blue. Yeah, I know. And did you notice how much work they've done on investigating these brokers? Virtually none. Like, where's that? So they've passed it now to the FMCSA, and the FMCSA is going to launch an investigation. Well, we'll see how far that goes. As I say, you've got to kind of look down the road and look for the shining light at the end of the tunnel. And I think at the end of the day, society will have learned a lot from this COVID experience. I think that some jobs will be a whole lot better after this COVID thing. And you may find out that the world is a better place, an easier place to live after we've all had to go through this. Because it's been a hell of a thing. As you all know, it's been a hell of a thing. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Keep the rubber side down. And we'll see you on the back. All be safe, everybody.